I knew something was wrong the moment Mom called 3 times in under 10 minutes. She never called that much, unless someone had died. Or, like this time, I'd done something that embarrassed the whole family. The final message came through in the family group chat. Thursday, 6 p.m. Come home. The family needs to talk to Lena. Talk? This was an intervention, a trial. They were still calling my company a situation. Still thought I was crazy for leaving the cybersecurity agency. Still believed I was failing. I stared at my phone. A message from Nadia, my COO, popped up at the exact moment. TechNation's going live at 6:45 p.m. Final version approved? I typed back, just in time for sentencing. Thursday afternoon. I pulled up in front of the big, cream-colored house in Georgetown, Texas. The house I grew up in, where everything had its rules, from how you poured tea to which degrees were deemed respectable. Ryan's Escalade was parked next to Dad's Silverado and Mom's gleaming Lexus. My old Tacoma sat tucked in the corner. Like a quiet reminder, I was the gray duckling among a flock of peacocks. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. No makeup, hair in a bun, worn black blazer over a plain white tee, no logos. I dressed like someone losing. They'd believe it. And that was the fun part. The door opened before I even knocked. Mom stood there, polite smile on her lips, but disappointment clear in her eyes. "You're 7 minutes late." "I'm alive," I said, stepping inside. "In business, every minute is money." She reminded me as if I hadn't signed million-dollar contracts before. The living room was bright. Everyone was already in place. Dad, the retired colonel, sat at the head like it was a board meeting, his gaze sharp and cold. Ryan, collar neatly popped, iPad in hand, looked at me with that "I know you need help" expression. His wife, Natalie, gave me a tight, pitying smile, like she was trying to empathize with a hopeless case. Aunt Pamela sipped her tea, watching like she was scoring a B-grade stage play. "Lena," Ryan began, "we're all here because we're concerned about you." I said nothing. He continued, in full financial advisor mode, "You might think you're chasing a passion, but the reality is your company shows no clear growth, no investors, no transparent reports, no public product." "We want to help," Natalie chimed in. "Maybe you could teach STEM to kids, or write technical articles, a good way to ease back into the real job market." I looked at her, didn't say a word. Each sentence like a tiny blade, cutting slow. But I wasn't bleeding. I was waiting. "Ryan," I asked calmly, "have you ever pitched for investment?" He nodded, confident. 3 times. I know how the market works." I smiled. "Yeah, so do I." What he didn't know, one of the firms he'd pitched to was a subsidiary of mine. Aunt Pamela set down her cup, smiling slyly. "Julie, my friend's daughter, just got hired at the biggest law firm in Dallas, youngest on the team. Her mom's over the moon. They used to think she'd never outshine you." Mom jumped in. "And now you're living alone, in a tiny apartment, no husband, no insurance, no stability. That's not how a daughter should live, Lena." I glanced at the clock. 6:41 நிமிடம். The article would go live in 4 minutes. I sat on the lowest seat in the room. No one had saved me a spot. That was fine. I wanted a clear view of every face, when their world crumbled. I didn't say much. That was the point. They talked over each other, Ryan with his market analysis, Natalie with her "have you considered" tone, Mom pacing behind the sofa like a disappointed board chair. Every sentence was dipped in concern and sharpened with judgment. "You're brilliant, Lena. Nobody's denying that," Ryan said, tapping his iPad like he was testifying before Congress. "But the tech startup space? It's volatile, especially AI. You're late to market. No one's going to fund another predictive learning platform unless you have serious IP," Natalie chimed in. "And even if you had a breakthrough, it's all about connections. Honey, you can't build a company in the shadows and expect traction." I looked at her. Eyeliner perfect, teeth glowing like she came with a ring light. She always had this way of weaponizing sweetness, the kind of support that makes you feel smaller. Mom sat down across from me, hands folded. Her voice dipped into gentleness, which somehow cut deeper. What are you even doing in Austin, baby? We don't know anything about your life. You work all night, you miss family birthdays, you barely return texts, you used to share everything with me. Dad hadn't spoken. He just stared at the fireplace like he was solving a war map. When he finally looked at me, it was with the grim certainty of a man delivering bad news. You're not failing. You're flailing. And we're here to stop the bleeding before it's too late. I smiled. Just once. Small. Controlled. Then Natalie said it, the line that sealed the moment in place. There's no shame in coming back home for a while, reset, maybe even rejoin the federal workforce. You were good at that. Good. Like a student who didn't quite pass but tried really hard. I leaned back in the chair, let the silence stretch. They didn't notice the time. 6:45 p.m. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. The first domino had tipped. Emma's voice was the first to crack. Wait! She stared at her phone like it was a foreign object. Lena? Is this real? Ryan snatched it from her hand, scrolled, froze, then said, loud enough for everyone to hear, Lena Carter, founder and CEO of Synapse Arc, valuation $2.8 billion? Dad blinked. What? I reached into my bag and pulled out my tablet, opened the homepage of TechNation, held it up. There I was, on the cover, sitting in a sleek glass office, wearing the same black blazer they'd just judged as concerning. Headline, The Billion-Dollar Quiet, How a Lone Engineer Built a Revolutionary AI Empire in Plain Sight. Nobody spoke. It was like someone had unplugged the room. Natalie's mouth opened and closed 3 times, but no sound came out. Ryan looked like someone had flipped his world upside down and left it hanging. Dad leaned forward. Is this real? I turned to him calmly. Do you really think I'd come here wearing thrift clothes to ask for help? I came to watch you all come to terms with something you never saw coming. Emma whispered, Oh my God! Actually, I said, checking my phone, make that $3.1 billion. We closed another acquisition this morning. And just like that, the family meeting turned into a funeral for their assumptions. The silence stretched. Not the awkward kind, but the type that shifts the air in the room, the kind where people look around, waiting for someone, anyone, to make it make sense. Mom's wine glass trembled slightly in her hand. She hadn't taken a sip since the reveal. Dad finally broke the quiet. 3.1 billion? His voice cracked slightly. With a B? Yes, I said simply, but that number is already outdated. Synapse Arc just signed a federal contract last week. Predictive crisis mapping, energy grid stabilization, AI threat detection, all in one system. Government rollout begins next quarter. Natalie blinked. But you said you were working on something small. No, I corrected. You said I was working on something small. I just never corrected you. Ryan stood up abruptly. You mean to tell me, this whole time, while we were worried, thinking you were off the grid, unstable, you were running a multi-billion-dollar company? I tilted my head. I didn't disappear, Ryan. You just stopped asking real questions. His face flushed. Why would you hide that from us? I looked at each of them, slowly. Because every time I tried to explain what I was building, you changed the subject. You asked about jobs with benefits. You asked if I was dating anyone. You asked if I was still finding myself. Not once did you ask what Synapse Arc actually does. Mom finally spoke, her voice small. What do you do? I tapped the screen of my tablet, launching the intro video I'd shown to investors in Zurich, Tokyo, and DC. A sleek, narrated presentation unfolded. Synapse Arc is a next-generation AI firm specializing in adaptive systems for critical infrastructure. Our tech anticipates market shifts, predicts national crises, and prevents cascading system failures. We don't guess. We calculate, simulate, and evolve. In real time. By the time the voiceover reached the military demo footage, Dad had sat back down. Natalie looked like she'd forgotten how to blink. Emma, still clutching her phone, was scrolling through the article like she expected to find a punchline. I set the tablet down. That little apartment you all pity? I said. It's the smallest unit in a building I own outright under a holding company. The Toyota truck? I drive it because it's durable, untraceable, and honestly, because I like it. Ryan gave a bitter laugh. So you've just been living this double life? For what? Revenge? No. I looked at him, sharp and clear. For focus. I didn't need applause. I needed silence. Emma glanced up. But Forbes, the timing. Intentional, I said. Strategic. The press release? The TechNation exclusive? The CNBC interview tomorrow morning? It's all aligned. But none of it would have hit as hard if I'd told you ahead of time, would it? Natalie opened her mouth, then closed it. Dad leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice lower now. You used to tell me everything, Lena. I met his eyes. I used to think you were listening. That landed harder than I meant it to. He looked away. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. This wasn't about crushing them. It was about clarity. And they were finally seeing it. Emma's phone buzzed, again and again. Her face lit up, then fell. Oh my God, she muttered. My inbox is full of people asking if I'm related to you. LinkedIn notifications, texts. Lena, this is everywhere. Natalie leaned toward Ryan. Didn't you pitch your fintech app to Irongate Ventures last quarter? He nodded slowly. Yeah. Why? I raised a brow. Irongate is one of our subsidiaries. You pitched to my firm. His mouth dropped open. You're kidding. We passed, I added calmly. Due diligence showed the model lacked scalable AI integration and had some questionable compliance flags. You passed on me? His voice cracked. No, I said. I did. The blow landed with precision. Emma leaned forward. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to see what you all said when you thought I was at my lowest. Turns out you were a lot more comfortable when you thought I was losing. That shut everyone up again. I stood, not dramatically, just enough to remind them that I wasn't asking for approval. You don't have to understand what I've built, but you'll respect it, not because it's successful, but because I did it without your hand-holding, without your name-dropping, and without playing by rules that were never built for people like me. Mom whispered, You could have told us. And you would have told me to be more realistic. Nobody disagreed. The clock on the wall chimed 7 p.m. I picked up my tablet, slipped it into my bag. I have a press prep call in 30 minutes, I said. They're doing a Tech Disruptors feature. Want to guess who's opening the segment? I turned to Emma. By the way, that pitch Ryan sent? It came through your LinkedIn. That makes you the referral contact. Her face paled. Good luck explaining that to him. I paused at the door. Next time you call a meeting about my situation, make sure you understand what the situation really is. Then I walked out. Outside, the sky was deep blue, the kind that stretches over Texas like a clean slate. My Tacoma sat right where I left it. I climbed in, phone still buzzing with notifications, interview requests, DMs from people who hadn't said my name in years. I opened one from an old college rival. Holy hell, Carter, you just broke the internet. I smiled, and I hadn't even started yet. By the time I pulled into Synapse Arc's underground garage, my phone had over 100 unread messages. Old classmates, former coworkers, investors who once ghosted me. One from Wesley, the ex who'd said, Tech's a brutal field, babe. You sure you want to waste your 20s on it? Now he wanted to grab coffee. Cute. The elevator doors opened directly into the executive wing, sleek, clean, glass everywhere. The only noise was the subtle hum of innovation. This was my world, not their living room tribunals or polite Southern judgment. Here, no one cared about your blazer brand, only your results. Maya, my executive assistant, met me just outside my office. They've started reaching out, she said simply. I raised an eyebrow. Your mother called twice. Your father left a voicemail. Your sister texted you 6 times, all caps. And, she hesitated, your brother sent a formal meeting request through LinkedIn. I nearly laughed. Approve it, I said. Maya's lips curled into a grin. Seriously? Sure, let him sweat it. She handed me a printed list of flagged inquiries from media, potential partners, and an unexpected one. Wesley Harrison's assistant called. He's requesting a sit-down. I didn't even blink. Put him on my calendar. She looked surprised. Not to talk, I added, to remind him who he underestimated. By noon, my inbox was overflowing. Natalie had posted a carefully curated photo of the two of us at Thanksgiving with the caption, "So proud of my brilliant sister-in-law at Lena Carter, Shaw's Women in Tech, Church Family First." She hadn't tagged me, just name-dropped for the SEO. Subtle, sloppy. Maya had flagged it within minutes. "Want me to have legal issue a takedown?" she asked. "No," I said. "Let her chase the clout." I had bigger things to deal with, like the incoming video call with the investment board. They'd all read the article. Their tone had already changed. The last time I pitched them, I wore this same black blazer. One of the partners, an aging Silicon Valley relic, had told me I had potential, but should consider bringing on a male co-CEO with technical gravitas. Today, when I logged in, they all sat straighter, spoke faster, smiled wider. Money has a way of adjusting posture. 2 hours later, Wesley walked into my office like nothing had happened. "Lena," he said, wearing his old confident grin, "you look incredible." I didn't stand. I didn't smile. "I look exactly the same as when you told me to stop being cute and start being realistic." He chuckled awkwardly. "Okay, that came out wrong. I meant—" "You meant it," I cut in. "And you meant it every time you said, 'Just get a safer job,' or 'You're smart, but this market isn't made for people like you,' or my favorite, 'AI's a man's game.'" He shifted in the seat across from me. "Look, I was wrong, clearly, but I think we can agree there's value in reconnecting, maybe even collaborating." "You want funding. I want partnership." "No," I said, pressing the intercom. "Maya, please escort Mr. Harrison out and update our visitor protocol. He should never have made it this far." Wesley rose, jaw clenched. "You're really not going to even consider—" I cut him off. "I considered. And then I remembered your exact words. Stick to consulting. They love diversity hires." That shut him up. Maya appeared in the doorway. "This way, Mr. Harrison." I didn't watch him leave. Later that evening, Maya returned with a familiar look on her face. "What now?" I asked, already knowing. "Your mother's online too. She says she's outside." "Of the building?" "Yes." "Alone?" "Number, with your father." I leaned back in my chair. "Let security follow protocol." "They already are," she said. "But your sister Emma is blowing up the lobby desk. She's been here for 40 minutes. I sighed. "Put her in conference room C, the small one, the one with the terrible chairs." Maya smiled. "Perfect." I took my time finishing internal reviews and board notes before heading down. Conference room C was windowless, cramped, and always a few degrees too cold. Emma sat at the edge of her seat, arms crossed, face tight with irritation. "Really, Lena?" she snapped. "You sent security?" "They followed company policy," I said. "No one gets through without clearance." "I'm your sister." "Exactly." She exhaled sharply. "You humiliated us." I tilted my head. "Number, I told the truth. It just wasn't the version you wanted to believe." Her voice cracked. "Mom's crying. Dad hasn't gone to the office. They feel betrayed." I didn't respond. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I didn't owe you the update. You never gave me space to succeed, just standards to meet." She softened slightly. "Okay, fine. We were wrong, but we didn't know. Now we do. So, maybe we can move forward?" I gave her a long look, then pulled up a file on my tablet. It was her husband's pitch history, 3 failed apps, 2 flagged for regulatory issues, and multiple investor blacklists. "You want me to partner with James?" I asked calmly. "The same James who called Synapse Arc Amateur Hour on a recorded investor call?" She turned pale. "You have that?" "I have everything." Her voice dropped. "You'd really freeze out your own family?" I stood. "Emma, I didn't freeze you out. You locked the door behind me. I just learned to build without keys." Then I walked out. Back in my office, Maya placed a small note on my desk. Your father wants 5 minutes, says it's personal, no pitches. I stared at it, then nodded once. Tell him Thursday, 7 sharp, at my table. My father showed up Thursday at 6:52 p.m. No Mercedes, no suit, no entourage of expectations, just jeans, a flannel shirt, and a worn brown briefcase that looked older than me. He stood quietly in the marble lobby of Synapse Arc, hands clasped behind his back like he was inspecting a military base he didn't quite recognize anymore. The same man who once told me emotion was a liability now looked like he wasn't sure how to take a breath in my world. Maya greeted him and led him to the elevator without a word. He nodded at her respectfully, like he was the guest, not the general. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office when she announced his arrival. Send him in, I said, not turning. He stepped in slowly, quiet. No lectures, no quotes, no immediate attempt to reclaim authority. You've built quite a place here, he said finally, voice low. I didn't reply. He glanced around the office, whiteboards covered in algorithms, news tickers scrolling across sleek monitors, the framed quote near my desk, "Success doesn't need permission." He read it, then looked at me. That yours? Yes. It should be, he said. It's the best thing I've read in years. I turned. He looked older, softer, like someone who'd spent a long week realizing he'd misjudged the one person he thought he understood best. I've been thinking, he began, adjusting the briefcase on his lap as he sat across from me, about your 5th grade science fair. That caught me off guard. You built that weather prediction model using basic neural networks, he said. Everyone else had baking soda volcanoes. You had a full-on algorithm with live radar pulls and accuracy rates. I remembered. It had predicted weather patterns 3 days out with over 70% accuracy. The judges were stunned. The principal cried. My dad missed it for a client dinner. You won first place, he said. I never asked how it worked. I just told you good job and asked what your next project would be. I stayed silent. I thought I was preparing you to survive the world, he added. Turns out, you were learning how to change it. He pulled out a folder from the briefcase and laid it across my desk. Inside were papers I hadn't seen in years, early prototypes of my AI logic trees, handwritten patent ideas, research grant forms, even rejection letters, ones I'd filed and forgotten. You filed your first AI patent at 19, he said, flipping through. Launched 2 startups under different names before Synapse. And we, your mother and I, we thought you were, what, taking time off? Figuring yourself out? I raised an eyebrow. That's what you told people. He didn't flinch. Because that's what I chose to believe. It was easier than asking what I didn't understand. That landed, not as a blow, but a truth. Quiet, sincere. He looked at me carefully. I'm not here to ask for money, or forgiveness. I'm here because I saw that girl at the science fair, and somewhere along the line I stopped seeing her. His voice dropped. That was my failure, not yours. For a second, my hands tightened around my coffee mug. This wasn't the speech I expected. Not another lecture. Not empty regret. He was showing up, really showing up, for once. I walked to the whiteboard and picked up a marker. You want to know what Synapse Arc does? I asked. He nodded. I started drawing. Neural net maps, feedback loops, adaptive processing logic. Then came the real-time crisis forecasting model, how our tech could predict market crashes, electrical grid failures, even social unrest. He listened carefully, not blinking, not interrupting. You're modeling systems at scale, he said, connecting the dots out loud. You're forecasting global volatility, down to behavior-level predictions. Yes. And helping institutions adapt before failure. Yes. He sat back. You're not just a tech founder, he said slowly. You're building the infrastructure of the future. I didn't speak. He looked at the drawings on the whiteboard like they were constellations he'd never studied. Bennett Global is bleeding, he admitted quietly. Our model is too old. Clients want automation, predictive strategy, smart systems. They want what you've built." I nodded. "I know. I saw your quarterly drop." He exhaled sharply, like that hit deeper than anything else. "You've been watching?" "I've been watching everything," I said, "because even if you weren't listening, I was still learning." He looked up. "I'm proud of you, Lena." "Not because I made billions?" "Number. Because you made something that matters, and you did it alone." We sat in silence for a few moments. He finally stood, shoulders squared but no longer puffed with ego. "Your mother wants to host a dinner," he said, "to celebrate your success. No pressure. But she's trying." I considered. "If we do," I said, "it's here, at Synapse. I'll give the tour. No judgment, no assumptions, just facts." He nodded. "Agreed." "One condition," I added. "No James, he's not invited." He raised his brows. "Fair." He turned to leave, then paused. "That quote of yours?" he asked, gesturing toward the wall. "I printed it out and framed it for my office, so I don't forget again." Then he was gone. After he left, Maya walked in and handed me a small package. "From your mom," she said. "She didn't want to leave without giving you this." Inside was a framed photo from the science fair. Me, small and proud, standing beside my clunky weather model with printed graphs taped to a cardboard backdrop. A sticky note on the frame read, "We missed it then. We're trying not to miss it now. Mom." I stared at it for a long time. Sometimes the hardest part of building an empire isn't proving you were right. It's letting people catch up to the version of you they refuse to see. The family dinner was scheduled for Thursday at 7 p.m., just like last time. Only this time it was on my floor. Synapse Arc's executive suite had never hosted a family gathering before. I had the caterers clear the sleek black conference table and replace the centerpiece touchscreens with fresh florals. Lighting adjusted to warm tones. Minimal branding. Just enough to say, "This is my house now." I met them in the lobby myself. My mother wore a tailored navy dress, heels too high for comfort. She looked around the lobby like she wasn't sure if she'd walked into a tech company or a film set. Ryan adjusted his cufflinks, clearly regretting not bringing a blazer. Emma clutched her designer tote like a security blanket. She didn't meet my eyes. Dad gave a simple nod. "Thanks for having us." Maya led them through the tour. No speeches, no flattery, just facts. The data visualizations lining the hallway walls showed real-time models, traffic patterns, energy surges, economic volatility indexes. Emma stared at a simulation of a hurricane's projected landfall and whispered, "You built all this?" I answered without looking at her. "Yes." In the innovation lab, Mom paused at a glass partition and watched engineers quietly testing drones and embedded sensors. "They're all so young," she said, almost to herself. "They're hungry," I replied. "They don't wait to be invited. They just build." We ended the tour in the atrium. High ceilings, open air, warm light pouring through angled glass. Dinner was laid out simply but elegantly, modern, southern, understated. The only thing loud in the room was the silence. Everyone took their seats, unsure who should speak first. So I did. "This company," I began, "was built in silence. On long nights, tight budgets, quiet wins. I didn't broadcast my progress because I didn't need the noise. I needed the space." They listened. This time, really listened. "When you assumed I was failing, you treated me like a problem. You planned my recovery before asking about my vision." Dad nodded slightly. "I don't need apologies," I continued. "But I do expect honesty. If you want to be part of my life from here on out, it's on my terms." Emma's voice cracked. "What terms?" "Respect," I said. "No interference, no judgment masked as advice, and no trying to take credit for things you never believed in." Mom looked down at her plate. Dad cleared his throat. "We've had some time to reflect, Lena." "Reflection is good," I said, "but reflection doesn't mean automatic access." Ryan set down his glass. "Then why invite us at all?" I met his eyes. Because I'm not here to erase the past. I'm here to redraw the lines. He looked at Emma. She looked at her plate. I didn't freeze you out, I said to her directly. I didn't delete you. You deleted me the moment you decided I was a cautionary tale instead of a contender. Emma's voice was low. I was jealous. I thought you were drifting while I was achieving. Turns out you were building while I was coasting. I didn't say anything. She continued. I deserve the seat I'm sitting in, but I know now, you earned yours. That, at least, was honest. After dinner, Dad walked with me to the edge of the atrium, where glass met skyline. The world's changing, he said quietly. And I see now, you're the one leading it, not chasing it. Finally, I said. He smiled faintly. This place, it's bigger than I imagined. Most things are, I replied, until you stop underestimating them. He turned to go, then stopped. Emma and James, he began. I know, I said. I bought their debt 3 weeks ago, through a holding company. They don't know yet. His eyes widened. Why? Because she's still my sister. She needs to clean up the mess, but I won't let her drown. He let out a breath. That's surprisingly generous. It's not generosity, I said. It's structure, and power, and boundaries. Which, by the way, I learned from watching you lead your company for 30 years. That landed. He looked at me again, not as a daughter needing guidance, but as an equal with a different map of the world. Later that night, I sat in my office alone. Outside, the skyline of Austin glowed under a velvet sky. My name was etched in brushed metal on the building's cornerstone. But my favorite thing on the wall wasn't a press clipping or a framed contract. It was that old science fair photo, me, braces and all, standing beside a crooked trifold board, arms crossed like I already knew I belonged in rooms where people didn't expect to see me. My phone buzzed. Maya, your mother's calling again. Want me to send her to voicemail? I replied, let it ring. Then I opened my laptop. Tomorrow I had a flight to DC, a meeting with the Department of Energy. Synapse Arc was being tapped to build adaptive infrastructure for federal emergency response systems. Another frontier, another system to rebuild. The world had called me reckless, unrealistic, naive. But I hadn't been any of those things. I'd just been quiet. Quiet enough to build without their noise. Quiet enough to listen when they dismissed me. Quiet enough to learn the rules before I rewrote them. And now? Now I wasn't just seen. I was followed. For everyone who's ever been underestimated, overlooked, or written off too soon, welcome to the Quiet Rebellion. We're just getting started.